everyone. This is part 76 too. Earth's history is confusing and part of the world order. I think the most important factor leading us to the secular society has been the educational factor. As a reader is in school until he's 16 tends to lean toward the now requires higher school education, and this militates against electronic pulses, which they and that Pecker is Soviet Union. Soviet weather engineers are sending out the most powerful man-made radio beams were ever created, many times efforts to alter the weather. The Woodpecker is a CW tube that connects Slovak St. Petersburg, Russia. 19 publishes an official paper 13 entitled Collaboration Recommends Cooperable Concern, including weather modification. 1977, the third published. Author Harlan Cleveland Institute for Humanities American missions for complete disarmament except international soldiers and for the individual entitlement to food, health, and education. Novak's article, The Trilateral Connection, appears in the Atlantic, and the schools, businessmen, and government officials is planning to fashion a new world order. 78 of Army adds in the Chaplain's Handbook of Religious Requirements, new legally practices on military bases throughout the world. These new religions are Satanism, and there was a American general that was interesting. His eyebrows and everything are weird, but he was high up. April 1978, telegram to the American Humanists Association. Dropping out, the microphone doesn't working. Can you just knock it off, whoever's listening down with me? Right, Minnesota publishes his autobiography with no apologies. He writes, in my view, that for monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastical spirit on getting more peaceful, more productive world community. 1979. Congress Party President Jimmy Carter signs into law in November 1980 at a prelude to victory party given by President candidate Ronald Reagan. Mr. Wright given to none other than the CFR. In his campaign, Reagan had promised to shun the directors. CFR member was chosen as Ronald Reagan's running mate. Cabinet members included Secretary of State Alexander Haig, Treasury Secretary Donald Reagan, Commerce Secretary Malcolm Baldrige, and Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger. Ronald Reagan's national debt stood at $935 billion. By the end of his second term, it had almost tripled to $275 billion. 1980, Derek Shearer, a longtime member of the Institute of Policy Studies, publishes a book entitled The Economic Democracy, in which he predates that the far-left president will be elected in the 1990s. Only one president has been elected in the 1990s, Bill Clinton, and he was Derek Shearer's college roommate in 1969. The Institute for Policy Studies is committed to socialism in America and sides with Soviet Union on almost every important foreign policy issue. April 25th, 1982, a full-page ad appears in major newspapers around the world proclaiming, "The Christ is now here," with advertising campaign coincides with the beginning of the speaking tour by Benjamin Creme, a British theolophist. In various interviews and speeches, Creme explains that the expectations of all peoples, Messiah is the Christ awaited by the Christians, the Jews. He is the Messiah. To the Muslims, he is Imam Mahdi. To the Buddhists, he is the fifth Buddha. To the Hindus, he is Krishna. In the past, Creme tells us the ascended masters had usually worked through disciples, but now they're among us and ready to help our world take its next step. Benjamin's Creme publication, Share International, is now produced in association with the UN's Department of Public Information. 1983, The Humanist publishes an essay which proclaims that the battle for humankind's future must be waged in public school classroom between the rotting corpse of Christianity and the new faith of humanism, and humanism will emerge triumphant. 1984, Power to Lead is published. James McGregor Burns admits the framers of the U.S. Constitution have simply been too shrewd for us. They have outwitted us. They designed separate institutions that cannot be unified by mechanical linkages for our bridges tinkering. If we are to turn the founders upside down, we must directly confront the constitutional structure they erected. 1985, Norman Cousins, president of the World Future Society and honorary chairman of the Planetary Citizens, says the world government is coming. In fact, it's inevitable. No arguments for it or against it can change the fact. 13th of August, 1986, Associated Press reports. People scattered over much of the eastern United States report a mysterious light in the night sky. Residents of Kentucky said they heard a boom and felt their houses shake. There were similar reports in other parts of the east. Mysterious lights have been witnessed by Americans from Michigan, Maine, Louisiana, Kentucky. Some people even said they saw a great ball of fire. Clark County, Kentucky Sheriff Larry Lawson said the people said their homes shook and windows vibrated as if there'd been an explosion or an earthquake, but it was just for a few seconds. They said the whole sky lit up. 14th of August, 1986, US Today describes an event which occurred on the night of August 12th. A spectacular light show that pranced across the night sky. 1987, at Governor Bill Clinton's of Arkansas visits socialist Antonio Gramsci in Italy. When asked by an Italian newspaper if he is there to learn how to implement socialist economic policies in the United States, Governor Clinton replies in the affirmative. Unreal. 1987, the secret constitution and the need for the constitutional change is sponsored part by the Rockefeller Foundation, and Arthur S. Miller says, a pervasive system of thought controls exist in the United States. The citizenry is indoctrinated by employment of the mass media and the system of public education. People are told what to think about. New vision is required to plan and manage that will transcend national boundaries and eliminate the poison of nationalistic solutions. A new constitution is necessary. 2nd of April 1987, Raymond English, Vice President of Ethics and Public Policy Center, tells National Advisory Council on Education, Research and Implement that critical thinking means that not only you learn how to think for oneself, but also means learning how to subvert the traditional values in your society. You are not thinking correctly if you're accepting me and Daddy taught you. That's not critical. July 3rd, 1987, the Arizona Republic reports. A sharp, startling boom jolted North San Diego County during the night, but authorities said they did not know what caused the mysterious blast. Meteorologist Wilbur Shangara of the National Weather Service is quoted as saying, "It sounded like a blast from a cannon. It was a big momentary shake. Like, it's a mystery. Last year we had several shakes like this. Happened 3 or 4 times a day for a week. We never found out what it was." July 8th, 1987, the Arizona Republic reports, for reasons unknown, even to the weather experts, the temperature at Greensburg, Kansas jumped 20 degrees in 10 minutes. Wow. That's a huge amount. Bill Ellis, an observer of the National Weather Service, says, "I've never seen anything like it. I don't know anybody that ever has." A secret experiment in weather modifications. August 11th, 1987, the U.S. Patent Office grants patent number 4,686,605. Dr. Eastland does also work for the Department of Defense, ARPA, Advanced Research Projects Agency. The patent is technology to change the weather by redirecting with very high wind patterns by bombarding the jet stream with high intensity electromagnetic waves. Dr. Eastland is able to divert it and alter the weather patterns in a particular area. Above us. November 2nd, 1987, Mikhail Gorbachev addressed the Soviet Politburo. In October 1917, we parted with the old world, rejecting it once and for all, and now we're moving towards a new world, the world of communism. We shall never turn off that road. His communist colleagues. Comrades, do not be concerned about all that you hear about gas, not Petroskia and democracy in the coming years. These are primarily for outward consumption. There will be no significant internal change within the Soviet Union other than for cosmetic purpose. Our purpose is to disarm the Americans and let them fall asleep. It seems like it's pretty much happened, actually. Everything's kept the same. June 1988, Lord Matravia, sorry for saying these names wrong, mysteriously disappears before an audience in Nairobi, Kenya. He had appeared to several groups in different parts of the world since that time. When Mattari appears, it is claimed that water in the area is changed, that it takes on miraculous hearing powers. Benjamin Cream's attitude towards those who refuse to accept this figure of the world as the world Messiah is seen in his statement. Why men see Maitreya? When men see Maitreya, they will know that the time has come to choose to go forward with him into a future dazzling in its promise or cease to be. December 7th, 1988, in an address to the UN, Mikhail Gorbachev says, "Well, progress is only possible through a search for universal human consciousness as we move forward to a new world order." 1989, Dr. Shirley McHerian, a senior director of the Mid-Continent Educational Library, addresses the 1989 Governors Conference on Education. What's happening in America today is total transformation of our society. We've moved into a new era. I'm not sure we have really begun to comprehend the tremendous amount of organizational restructuring and human resource development. What we have to do is build a future revolution in the curriculum that we will no longer revolution in the curriculum is that we are no longer are we teaching facts to children, and that is so true. 12th of May 1989 at Texas A&M University, Bush states that the US is ready to welcome the Soviet Union back to the world order. 1990, the book Keys of the Blood, Catholic priest Malachi Martin quotes Pope John Paul II saying, "By the end of this decade, we will live under the first one world government that has ever existed in society and nations, a government with absolute authority to decide the basic issues of survival. One world government is inevitable." 1990, Peter Kawawa, in charge of the security for a company called Product Ingredient Technology in Boca Raton, Florida, learns to his dismay that the factory he was led to believe was manufacturing cherry flavoring is actually producing chemical biological agents to be shipped to Iraq. He also discovers that this has been done with the full knowledge and consent of the FBI, CIA, and the Bush administration. When he attempts to alert authorities, government agencies seize the documents he has collected, and then his wife is killed. Hence the mysterious Gulf War illness refuses to acknowledge. September 11, 1990, in a address to the Congress entitled Towards a New World Order, Bush says, "The crisis in the Persian Gulf offers a rare opportunity to move towards a historic period of cooperation. Out of these troubled times, a new world order can emerge. We are now straight of a United Nations. We are now inside of a United Nations that performs as envisioned by its founders." But who were those founders of the UN that were exactly were their intentions? At least 43 members of the US delegation, San Francisco, were also members of the CFR, Council of Foreign Relations. The Secretary General at the UN Founding Conference in 1945 was US State Department official named Alger Hiss. It was later determined that Alger Hiss was a Soviet spy. He was convicted of perjury for lying about his pro-Soviet activities. Hiss was not just an Arab terrorist. The UN has worlders for leaders. October 1st, 1990, in UN address, President Bush speaks of the collective strength of the world community expressed by the UN. Historical movement towards the New World Order. 1991, Brittany Siddle. The 9th grade in Tennessee is given 0 by a teacher for writing a research paper about the life of Jesus Christ. She is told that is not an appropriate thing to do in a public school. Other students in the same class were allowed to write papers about reincarnation, magic, and witchcraft. Why weren't people saying it back then? 1991, President Bush praises the New World Order on stage in the State of the Union message. What is at stake is more than a small country. It's a big idea, a new world order to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind based on shared principles and the rule of law. The illumination of 1,000 points of light. The winds of change are with us now. Alice Bailey, the theosophist, used the same expression, points of lights, in describing the process. General Brent Snowcroft, President Bush's national security advisor, proclaims a colossal event is upon us, the birth of the New World Order. June 1991, CFR's co-conspire war to New World Order, attended by 65 prestigious members of government, labour, academia, military, media, professionals of 9 countries. July 1991, the Southeastern World Affairs Institutes discussed New World Order programs with its topics, legal structures for the New World Order and the United Nations from its conception to New World Order. July 91, on a CNN program, former CIA Director Strasfield Turner, Council of Foreign Relations, was asked about Iraq. Responds, "We have a much bigger objective. We've got to look in the long run here. This is an example, the situation between the United Nations and Iraq, where the United Nations is deliberately intruding into the sovereignty of a sovereign nation. Now, this is a marvelous precedent to be used in all countries on the world." So basically, if you don't agree, you're going to get your country wiped out. August 91, we were told that hardliners in the Soviet Union had mounted a coup against that Mikhail Gorbachev has been arrested. The coup attempt fails and results in the apparent demise of the Soviet system and the installation of Boris Yeltsin. It has since been learned that the coup was a sham designed to convince the West that communism has fallen, when in reality it hadn't. Mikhail Gorbachev had actually planned to stage the coup 3 weeks before it happened. All the leaders of the coup had been pardoned and released. 29th of October 1991, David Fairbank, former US ambassador to Romania, tells North Carolina audience, George Bush has been surrounding himself with people who believe in a one world government. They believe that the Soviet system and the American system are converging. 1992, The Twilight of Sovereignty, the former Citicorp chairman Walter Wriston is published, in what he claims a truly global economy will require compromise on national sovereignty. There's no escaping the system. The United Nations Conference Environment and Development Earth Summit takes place in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, headed by a conference secretary, General Maurice Strong. The main products of this summit are the Biodiversity Treaty, Agenda 21, which the US hesitates to sign because of the opposition at home due to the threat to the sovereignty. The summit says the first world's wealth must be transferred to the third world. We are told an effective execution of the Agenda 21 will require a profound reorganization of all human society, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. Under the principles of the Agenda 20, return 50% of the land to the US wilderness. Already 20 locations in this country have been designated UN World, have been set aside for UN biosphere reserves. Control over these areas within US borders have been turned over to the UN. The sinister intentions of the radical environmentalists are revealed in the statement by a famous underwater explorer, Jacques, in attendance at an Earth summit. In order to stabilize the world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day. Oh my goodness. It's horrible. 21st of May 1992, in an address to the Bilderberg meeting in Nevers, France, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger declares, today Americans would be outraged if UN troops were entered Los Angeles to restore order. Tomorrow they will be grateful. This is especially true if they were told that there was an outside threat beyond whether real or proclamated, that the threat threatened of our very existence. It is then that all people of the world will plead with the world leaders to deliver them right from this evil. The one thing that every man fears is the unknown. When presented with this scenario, the individual rights will be willingly relinquished for the guarantee of their well-being granted to them by the world government. 20th of July 1992, Time magazine publishes The Birth of the Global Nation by Strobe Tollett, a Rhodes Scholar, roommate of Bill Clinton, Oxford University, Council of Foreign Relations Director, Trilateralist, which he writes, nationhood as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. Citizens of the world will have assumed real meaning. 21st of August 1992, near Ruby Ridge, Idaho, the home of Randy and Vicki Weaver and their 4 children have been under surveillance by the U.S. Marshals Service for 17 months. When a family dog begins barking, the family friend Kevin Harris and the Weaver's 13-year-old son Sammy follow, thinking it's the scent of a deer. Men in camouflage clothing, the marshals, shoot the dog and Harris, and Sammy return fire. Deputy Marshal William Deegan and Sammy are killed in the exchange. Sammy is shot in the back as he runs in for the house. The Marshal Service requested assistance from the FBI, which sends the hostage rescue team to the scene. 1992, a HR-2 sniper Louis Horechi fires 2 shots. The first 2 wounds Randy Weaver, though not seriously. The second kills Vicki Weaver as she holds her baby in her arms and seriously wounds Kevin Harris. Randy Weaver's violation. He allegedly sawed off a shotgun barrel to a quarter of an inch too short. For that, his house was surrounded by federal agents and his wife and son were killed. 31st of August 1992, 11 arms violations he was accused of. September 29, 1992, a town hall meeting in Los Angeles, a trilateralist and former CFR President Winston Lord, later Assistant Secretary of the State in the Clinton administration, delivers a speech entitled Changing Our Ways, Americans in the New World, which he remarks, to a certain extent we're going to have to yield some sovereignty, which is controversial at home. Under the North America are going to be hurt as low-wage jobs are taken away. Winter 1992-93, the Council of Foreign Relations Foreign Affairs publishes Empowering the United States by UN Secretary General Brutus Dugohali, sorry for saying it wrong, who asserts it is undeniable that centuries-old doctrine of absolute sovereignty no longer stands. Underlying the rights of the individual and the rights of peoples is a dimension of universal sovereignty that resides in all humanity. It is a sense that increasingly finds expression in a gradual expansion into international law. This is setting the significance of the United Nations should ever be evident and accepted. 1993, Second Parliament of the World's Religions is held in Chicago on the 100th anniversary of the first. Like the first convention, this one seeks to join all the religions of the world into one harmonious whole, but it wants to make them merge back into their original element. Traditional beliefs of monolithic religions such as Christianity are considered incompatible with individual enlightenment and must be drastically altered. 28th of February 1993, a force of 76 ATF targets become embroiled in deadly fight with a bunch of Davidians while attempting to present an arrest warrant for the sect leader David Koch for alleged federal firearms and explosive violations. 4 ATF agents are killed, transferred from Secret Service where they were Clinton guards to BATF prior to the assault, killed by friendly fire. All died with gunshot wounds to the left temple. From 6 skeleton lists, and 16 were wounded during the shootout, while the estimate 6 Davidians are killed and an unknown number, including Koch, injured. Federal law strictly prohibits the use of military personnel equipment against American citizens. An exception is allowed if drugs are involved. The ATF agents simply lied in order to obtain the use of the National Guard helicopters in their assault. They claimed there was a methamphetamine lab in the Branch Davidian compound. There was no evidence whatsoever of the existence of the methamphetamine lab in the Branch of the Davidian compound. There are no indications that the ATF ever attempted to serve a warrant or to even announce who they were. They just emerged from stock trailers with guns blazing. At the same time that ground assault began, helicopter gunships began firing at the Branch Davidian compound from also 9 minutes after the ATF attack began. The ATF had also positioned snipers in the building some distance away from their Davidian compound. They could not shoot at the Branch Davidians without firing over the heads of the attacking ATF agents. It is entirely possible that some of the ATF casualties were hit by their own men. 2 of the ATF agents who were killed in the raid had entered a second-story window of the Branch Davidian home. Third agent had then fired directly into the window of his comrades he had just entered. 19th of April 1993, following a 51-day siege, military tanks driven by FBI personnel began punching holes in the Branch Davidian complex to insert tearing agent and a standoff. Shortly after noon, fire breaks out within the building and it is rapidly engulfed by flames. The remains of at least 74 individuals, including 21 children under the age of 16, are recovered from the ruins. Some who have died of gunshots wounds. The CS gas that the FBI introduced into the Branch Davidian compound had previously banned and have used it against Saddam Hussein, yet it was used on women and children at Waco. The manufacturer of the gas had quit selling it to Israel because they had used it against Palestinians in their homes, and several children had been killed by it. The manufacturer had warned that the gas should not be used in closed space because of its potentially lethal consequences. The gas is also highly flammable. Paul Gray, independent arson investigator who determined that the Branch Davidians were responsible for the fire, was a former ATF employee, and his wife was a current ATF employee, hardly an unbiased third party. In congressional hearings, Attorney General Janet Reno claimed that the government had to act because children were being abused. This raises an interesting question. Why was the ATF involved at all? Child abuse cases are not within the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms. Kerry Durrell, the 14-year-old girl whose tear-jerking testimony convinced many that the raid was justified, was not even with the Branch Davidians at the time. She alleges that David Koch Koresh abused her. She was living with her mother and grandmother in California. July 18, 1993, CFR member and trilateralist Henry Kissinger writes at Los Angeles Times concerning NAFTA. What Congress will have before it is not a conventional trade agreement, but an architectural, the new international system, a first step towards a new world order. 20th of July, 1993, White House Counsel Vince Foster is found dead at Fort Mercy Park. Mysterious circumstances. He had been shot in the head. Official ruling suicide. FBI Director William Sessions is fired by Clinton only hours before Foster turns up dead. In order to get the location where his body was found, Foster would have had to walk 700 feet through a heavily wooded park, yet no soil was found on his shoes. FBI agents were prevented from investigating Foster's account office by the administration officials until they had removed several files. Vincent Scales, an expert witness who investigated thousands of homicides during his 35 years as a homicide investigator in the New York Police Department, observes, "In my experience, I've never seen a case so poorly handled and investigated, especially since there was so much evidence of foul play." He signs the present director of 25 and then declares it classified so the American can't see what it's free of. P issued to members turn over control of the U.S. military. 10th of May, 1994, U.S. Marine Station at 29 Palms, California, are given a survey in which they are asked if they'd be willing to swear a code in which it declares, "I am a United Nations fighting person." They are also asked in a survey if they would be willing to fire on American citizens. American citizens. Oh, pardon me. September 1994, the U.S. Senate comes very close to ratifying the Convention of Biological Diversity, which comes out the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. 92, which was signed by President Clinton in 93. At the last minute, senators become aware of its outrageous agenda to subjugate most humankind to sacred nature. The UN objectifies this treaty, includes make nature worship a state religion, classify people as an animal, and create areas of devoid. That's deep. The treaty itself is less than 30 pages long, loosely worded, a rambling commongulation or legalese and statements of principle, but the impulse would not be written until after the Senate ratifies the treaty. In effect, Congress would be signing a blank check. Worse yet, the enabling protocols are written by non-government organizations, radical environment and social organizations. September 23, 1994, the globalists realize that what's going on, they have only a limited amount of time in which to implement their policies. Speaking at the United Nations Ambassadors' Dinner, David Rockefeller remarks, "The present window of opportunity during which a truly peaceful and independent world order might be built will not be open for too long." Notice he did not question if the world order would come, only whether it would arrive peacefully. He believes we are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order. March 1995, UN delegates meet in Copenhagen, Denmark, to discuss various methods of imposing global taxes on the people of the world. April 19th, 1995, an explosion devastates Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, resulting in the deaths of 168 people. Both former FBI agent Ted Gunderson and Air Force explosives expert General Brenton Parton said that the ammonia nitrate fuel oil bomb in a truck parked in front of the office building could not have possibly caused the extensive structural damage that resulted. There had to be explosives attached to the columns inside the building. Some of the debris from the Murrah building were blown back toward the truck. Dr. Raymond Brown, a geophysicist for Oklahoma Geological Survey, reported seismic data for that day, which include that there were actually two explosions about 12 seconds apart. Televised video taken shortly after the bombing shows the unexploded devices from the building being hauled away by the bomb squad. Ed Smith, whose two children were killed in the Murrah daycare, asked the question on national TV, where was the ATF? All their of their employees survived because they'd been told not to go to work that day. After she asked the question, she says the government agents told about it. Lester Mars, in charge of the Dallas ATF office, claims that the ATF agent and the DEA agent were riding in the elevator in a building, that after the blast, their elevator free fell 50 meters and that they escaped from the elevator and rescued several people. Yet elevator service personnel says that no one was in the elevators. No one was in the elevators. Free fall, and the doors of all elevators were jammed shut by the explosion. They say that if anyone had free fallen 50 feet, they would have at very least broken their ankles. When asked if he had suspected that something might happen on April 19th, John McGaw, director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, replied that he had. He had stated that all BAF facilities across the country had been notified to be on alert. When BAF agents in Oklahoma City were asking the same questions, they replied that they had no idea anything could happen on that day. Clearly, someone is not telling the truth. Immediately after the bombing, the FBI launched a massive manhunt for John Doe number 2. Now, we're expected to believe that he never existed. Witnesses who say they saw John Doe number 2 were not allowed to testify before a grand jury, which indicted Timothy McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh was a CIA agent that had been scrubbed and cleaned, had his record, everything made out that he wasn't in the army when he was. Like, he was deep in the ops. May 1995, incredibly, Larry Potts, FBI's man in charge of the Ruby Ridge and Waco operations, is promoted to become the number 2 man at the Bureau. September 1995, Popular Science magazine describes a top-secret U.S. Navy installation called HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, in the state of Alaska. This project beams powerful radio energy into the Earth's upper atmosphere, and one of the goals of the program is to develop a capability of manipulating local weather using techniques developed by Bernard Eastlund. Now, also, I will do the next video on Australia and what goes on here. Australia has we have the biggest HAARP facility in the world, and no one knows about it. Very few know about it. Okay, so September 27th to October 1st, 1995, the State of the World Forum takes place, sponsored by the Gorbachev Foundation, located in the Presidio of San Francisco. It's important to realize that Mikhail Gorbachev established his foundation in 1991 before the coup, which eventually led to his fall from office and the breakup of the Soviet Union. Foundation President Jim Garrison chairs the meeting, which includes Gorbachev, Bush, Britain's Margaret Thatcher, Canadian occultist Margaret Strong, media mogul Ted Turner, Gates, and other conferences around the oneness of mankind and the coming of the global government. However, the term global governance is used in a place of New World Order, since the latter has become a lightning rod for opponents of global government. The mission statement is and revealing. The State of the World Forum will focus on the fundamental changes, opportunities as we enter the next phase of human development. It has been held in the belief that this momentous juncture in history, we are giving birth to the first global civilization. 1996, United Nations 420-page report, Our Global Neighborhood, is published. It outlines a plan for global governance, calling it for an international conference on global governance in 1998 for the purpose of submitting to the world the necessary treaties and arrangements for ratification by the year 2000. March 1st, 96, U.S. Marshal Services represents its highest award of valor to 5 surviving deputy marshals involved in the deadly Ruby Ridge siege, promoting sharp criticisms from 2 members of the Idaho congressional delegation. Senator Larry Craig comments, for the U.S. Marshal Services to say Ruby Ridge incident is worthy special of commendation is sure to provoke outrage from many Americans, and it should. Representative Helen Chenworth remarks, since the investigation of both Congress and Justice Department raised significant questions about these activities of all federal agents involved in the Ruby Ridge operation, the U.S. Marshal Service should be trying to sort out what went wrong and ensuring that such a deadly mishap didn't happen again, rather than handing out awards. May 1996, at the J.T. Lambert Immediate School in East Sternberg, Pennsylvania. 6th grade girls are forced to strip and undergo. One girl tries to call her mother, but school officials refuse to let her do so. Some of the girls began to cry. Others attempt to crawl out the windows to escape. The school now tells them they are a bunch of babies. Oh my goodness, that is terrible. What is going on? Why? May 1, 1996, German air base established at Holloman Field near Alameda, Mexico. It's the first time in U.S. history that a foreign nation has been allowed to set up a permanent military installation on American soil. Wasn't New Mexico? Yeah, okay. June 1996, Bishop William Swing moves to bring all religions of the world into a single organized religions. The UR would be the spiritual counterpart of the UN Swing plans to create a UR charter by June 1997 to establish its that one can only come to God through Jesus Christ are considered intolerant and must force in military ex 21 US cities. Fallen 96 lows to the citizens of Australia are ordered to immediately take their own firearms. They are warned if they are punished with prison time. The Higgs is done later in America, and yes, that's what happens. And they had a big problem because there was something like 5-6 guns per, and there was something like 50 million guns, not just like 50 million in 1995. This is why they cracked down on it. It was out. Scored a novel, a close friend of William Kobe, a former rodeo program with host Don Weideman. A novel had worked for the White House as a special counsel on intelligence. He states, Ruby Ridge was a deliberate they using gun confiscation and assaults on a religion as a paramilitary set up for a global police state by the year 2000. Now, this is an old document. Like, look where we are now. He says that killing the Branch Davidians was the original intention of Waco under what was called the D Plan. He issues a chilling warning. Colby was of the opinion that these guys were hell-bent on creating a condition that would erode all of our constitutional freedoms. Ultimately, that will happen when they start using what we call the pocket nuke, a miniature Israel-designed briefcase-sized nuclear weapon that can be left in an apartment building somewhere. It will take out about a 20-square block. They will blame it on the Muslims, claiming that they saw into a condition of martial law under the United Nations. It's pretty much a neutrino bomb is what they're talking about. 1st of January 1997, a new Secretary General of the United Nations is from the nation of Ghana, West African. He was Kofi, I can't say his name, sorry. He was an insider, a long-time UN official. He has been in the employ of the United Nations for more than 30 years, so he's well acquainted with the UN objectives and the methods. Just prior to being elected Secretary General, he was the Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations, so he's been heavily involved in the UN's efforts to establish its own standing army. In order to placate critics of the UN and the United Nations, he has placed occultist Maurice Strong in charge of reform. That might be that guy I was talking about with the weird eyebrows. He's 1997. The federal government announces that COSCO, Chinese Ocean Shipping Company, has been awarded 138 million taxpayer-subsidized loan guarantee that. Again. All right, where are we up to? Let's just stand side of this here. Benjamin Cream's emergence newsletter readers. Our letter to the coming of the Lord, Matria, that supposed new age Christ is at hand. Stand ready to see the great Lord, for the time his emergence is nigh. Respond quickly to his call, and forever in hatred and intolerance of all men. 12th of March 1997, American citizens assemble at a hearing in the Long Beach Harbor Commission to voice their opposition to the Clinton administration for leasing a port facility to COSCO, company owned by Clinton administration had closed down the U.S. Navy facility at Long Beach, California earlier this decade as a result of defense cutbacks. Now they want to lease it to. This is the very same regime that had threatened to nuke LA, US customs officials would only be allowed to inspect one of it out of every 8 containers. Wow. They had brought into the port. Already, Costco had been implemented in an attempt to smuggle 2,000 AK-47 rifles through Oakland to arm criminal gangs. 13th March 1997, tens of thousands of Arizona citizens can see strange lights over the night skies over Phoenix. Several capture the phenomenon on home video cameras. Lights are arranged in a V shape over a mile wide. Police and military claim nothing unusual happened that night. Nothing showed up on radar. Canadian researcher, the late Serge Monas, reported that through Project Bluebeam, NASA had developed the capability of projecting three-dimensional holographic images into the Earth's atmosphere. Using this technology, it would be possible to fake UFO invasion, convince the people of the world that we must unite in the one world governments in order to combat this alien menace. This may be indeed the experiment in faking them, but technology was more pedestrian. A National Guard unit visiting out from the state was using parachute flares to illuminate a flight zone, and they were arranged in a striking manner, described. March 19, 1997, during a session of the House National Security Commission, Representative Duncan Hunter addresses the fact that has now obtained control of the Panama Canal. A subsidiary of Costco has entered into agreements to lease the anchor ports, Balboa on the Pacific end of the canal and Cristobal on the Atlantic end. So, March 21st, 97, 3 Red Navy vessels, 2 destroyers and a supply ship dock at the North Island Naval Air Station in San Diego Bay for 5 days. This warm reception they received was marked in contrast to the Chile confrontation 1 year earlier when US naval carriers were sent to Tuan. Yeah, so where I was saying it did just cut out again when I was talking about the middle downwards. Okay, so I'll just leave the links in the description. It's not going to get any further with this. It's taking me 8 different goes at recording in different sections. I'll just try and edit it now. But my next video will be on a massive Tesla coil in the middle of Australia in a deep underground base that many people know about, that don't know about, and it's supposed to put a magnetic grid up and allow them to talk to submarines on this southern hemisphere. I might just release the video I've been sitting on for 12 months that I've been thinking I shouldn't, and yeah, I might just release that one too. Alright, thanks for watching wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. I appreciate your time, and if you have any anything, just let me know. Any comments, just let me know in the comments there. And I appreciate your time. I'm sorry for the poor sound quality. It cuts in and out and it's jumping. But yeah, this is what happens when you talk about something they don't like. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.